Hello. Um, we are here to present the study we have developed for the Fundación Canal regarding the European Green Taxonomy in water-related activities. I would like to start by thanking Fundación Canal for the opportunity to delve into this complex but exciting topic, and also the team of experts of Emgrisa, our company, that have helped me with developing the study. This is the index of the study. I will navigate freely through this index, but basically we will break into two parts. The first one is to try to explain what is taxonomy and how it's been deployed by the European Commission. The second part will be dedicated to more specific analysis of the requirements of taxonomy for the urban water cycle and other water-related activities. And finally, I will make a short reflection on which are the challenges of taxonomy for the different stakeholders involved in this application. First of all, what is green taxonomy? Basically, it is a classification of economic activities, not of all economic activities, at least for the moment, but those that are being identified as with the potential of contributing to sustainable development in terms of contribution to the 6 environmental objectives that are posed by the same taxonomy, which are the climate change adaptation and the climate change mitigation. These are the climatic objectives, and the so-called environmental objectives that are protection of water resources, continental and marine waters, the transition to a circular economy, the control and prevention and pollution, and finally, the protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. How it is expected that this taxonomy help to really drive the public and private investment into sustainability? Well, this is a pillar of the European Green Deal, and is also closely linked with other green finances tools that have been promoted by the Commission right now. And one example of what is expected from the taxonomy is that a recent agreement of the Parliament, European Parliament and the Council have stated that for those issues of green bonds that want to qualify as green bonds, at least 85% of the funds must be allocated to sustainable activities as defined in the taxonomy regulation. Well, how the taxonomy regulation has been deployed for the moment? Well, the taxonomy regulation was released in 2020, and from then, a first climate delegated act was launched in 2021, and 2 additional delegated acts has been promoted since then. The disclosure delegated act that explains how these elements must be reported by the companies, and a complementary climate delegated act to include as transitional activities the nuclear and gas energy activities. Finally, very recently, with some delay regarding the previous expectations, a draft environmental delegated act has been released in April 2023, and at the same time, some modifications of the other climate delegated acts has been released for public consultancy. The reflection here is that it is a very fast development, even considering that it is a very complex, technically complex regulation. In fact, we could call this is an innovative regulatory body. And everything is moving, everything is changing. So our study was released in November 2022, and we have to say that from that moment, many things have happened that are not included in the study, but somehow I have tried to include it in this presentation at least. Well, what is needed to be qualified as a sustainable economic activity? First of all, we have ensured that the activity is eligible. This means that it's identified in any one of these delegated acts I've mentioned previously, and it can be identified as environmentally sustainable activities per se, so to speak, enabling activities, those that are needed for the first one to really work, and finally transition activities, that are those activities that are needed or considered to be necessary for the transition, the energy and environmental transition we are involved currently in the European Union. The second part is to determine that the activity is aligned with taxonomy. It means that it complies to some screening criteria for the substantial contribution to at least one objective, and it does not significantly harm any of the remaining 5 objectives. Moreover, it must be carried out in compliance with some minimum social safeguards that for the moment are very general regulatory things like OECD standards, but probably there will be a further development of a social taxonomy. This is a very dense slide, but to synthesize it, regarding particularly the economic activities themselves and not the financial ones that are also obliged by this regulation. Basically, the companies that are undertakings that are obliged to report under taxonomy regulation are the big ones. So those that have more than 2,050 employees, those small and medium enterprises that are in the markets, and finally companies that have a certain volume of turnover or balance sheet tool. So eligibility has been reported in 2020 sustainability reports, and alignment must be reported this year for the year 2022. More or less, there are like 50,000 companies that are obliged by this taxonomy regulation for reporting. This is a first example of the application of taxonomy. This is Canal de Isabel II, the company that operates the water supply and wastewater treatment cycle in Madrid. And we can see that most of the activity of the company is aligned, well, is eligible under taxonomy, not aligned, eligible, because indeed the activities of the urban water cycle has the potential of substantial contribution to climate objectives, so they are eligible in principle. Another example for other company based in Madrid, that is Acciona, that has gone a bit further because last year they already reported the alignment, and we can see that currently there is more or less 40% of their activity that is aligned with taxonomy, is eligible under the taxonomy, but we can see also that specifically the water cycle, the urban water cycle activities, Acciona has a relevant part of this business in this sector. The level of alignment is relatively low, around 18%, meaning that really is not immediate the compliance in this sector. Is a rather complex regulation, and there are some practical difficulties of the operators, the utilities, to comply with the alignment criteria. Well, this is to present more or less what are the number of activities that may be eligible under the 6 objectives. As we can see, there are 120 activities if we attend exclusively to the Climate Delegated Act that are eligible. Here, the proposals that are included in the last April draft proposal are included. And we have far less activities that may be considered eligible under the environmental delegated acts, just 35. This means that around 140 economic activities are currently considered taxonomic or eligible. Well, we are now coming into the second part of the study that has more to do with specific conditions that apply to the open water cycle on one side, that is what is presented in this slide, and the other water-related activities that will be presented in the next slide. The selection of activities here is not major problem because it's rather clear. Also, the assessment of the activity of Canal Isabel II has helped us to really identify which are the activities involved. But we can see some specific difficulties arising, yes, comparing the Climate Delegated Act and the Environmental Delegated Act. One is that the Commission, for the moment, is using different codes or even different names to closely related or similar activities. As this shown in the example, what is in the Climate Delegated Act named one way, in the Climate Delegated Act, in the Environmental Delegated Act is named a different way. And it may create a bit of confusion, but it's simply just to point it out. In the case of urban water cycle, most activities are been maintained. I think in the last proposal there is continuity in this sense, although some of the activities is in yellow and somehow change his nature or have been somehow reorganized. One important thing is that even though taxonomy provides a linkage among the taxonomy itself and the NASA classification, it is not immediate. So it also may make it difficult to really classify activities when you get to apply the taxonomy. And also these changes in the regulatory proposal create difficulties to fix a photo of what we have to really assess when trying to apply the taxonomy. These are the other water-related activities that we have identified. This is a work that has, we have tried to include after a literature review and as per judgment, a series of activities that requires a lot of great volume of water because our water consumers or the discharges into the environment are particularly relevant or contaminant. And we have also included here some other activities related to water or that are developed in water. So also maritime and inland transport is included here. If we attend to the changes derived from the last draft proposal, here we see more changes. I mean, some relevant activities that were in the previous proposal have been somehow dropped. And some of them are quite important, like all the primary activities like agriculture, livestock, and fishing, and also some industrial activities. So probably in the future, they will be included when more relevant criteria or when the criteria, screening criteria, can eventually be consolidated. This is a short summary, not exhaustive summary of the criteria that applies to water cycle. There are wide types of criteria. Some are qualitative, some are quantitative. Some refers mainly to the compliance to the current regulation, European regulation, or well-known standards. But the other has quantitative thresholds, for instance, for water consumption, in the water supply distribution, or in the desalination that has been included like enabling activity. Let's go for the next one. This is the organization of the study. We have developed up to 47 fact sheets. I'm afraid that these fact sheets are not translated into English, but I hope that with the current powerful translation tools that are available, it wouldn't be a major obstacle for the usability of the guide. And this is more or less the aspect of these fact sheets. We have included a contextualization of the different criteria, and we are dwell into guidance, some guidance for compliance. It's not a handbook, but we have really identified the tools that are available, and we provide some criteria on how to tackle with the demonstrating of the compliance with these screening criteria, both for do not significant harm criteria and for the substantial contribution criteria. Well, this is an example of how taxonomy works, and is an illustration of how to tackle the compliance in the case of hydropower. And for the objective one that I remember was the climate change mitigation. So the first consideration is the type of facility that we are assessing. If this is a runoff river hydropower plant with no artificial reservoir, this is immediately considered as an activity that substantially contributes to climate change mitigation. If not, if there is an artificial reservoir, it has been determined because of literature or, well, review, there is a solid, a robust relation among the power density, that is the power per square meter. So it is relatively easy to determine ratio. And if it is above 5, it is considered as a strong correlation with the greenhouse gases emissions that are produced during the life cycle of the installation. In this case, substantial contribution is considered with no other kind of proof of validation. If not, we have to go for a specific analysis of the greenhouse gas emissions during the life cycle of the reservoir. There are some suggestions how to tackle that. You can find it in the study, so that if after this life cycle emissions assessment, the results is below 100, there is possible to consider the facility as substantially contributing. If not, it is finally determined as not aligned. And the fourth step, so to speak, is to really demonstrate that there is no problem with any other of the 5 remaining objectives. And I have to say that it's not such an easy question. In the case of these kind of facilities, the conditions for not harming the water environment are not so easy to ensure. Well, finally, some reflection on the challenges and difficulties for the different stakeholders. We are running out of time, so I will not go for each one of them. You have a specific chapter in the study with a full review of these challenges. And eventually, one reflection for the future of the taxonomy. Currently, the idea of the Commission is, well, there is a reflection document by the Platform on Sustainable Finances that is proposing a schema for extend the taxonomy to the whole economic activity. So not only these substantially contributing activities will be included, but also the activities that are always significantly harmful will be identified, and the rest, the conditions for not harming the environment should be developed so that the whole spectrum of economic activity would be covered. And this is still to be developed, but probably this is the future of taxonomy. And well, I encourage you to explore the document. It's a navigable document, it's easy to consult, and there are really very useful material there and links to other documents, legislation, so that is, in our opinion, and it was our intention to make it an entry point for those interested in explore the taxonomy and particularly in its application to the water sector. So thank you very much.